Good morning class and a very warm welcome to this academic year of 2021. I know it's been a long time since we have all met and let's make up our minds, move forward, and now it's time to set our thinking caps on. So today let's begin with our first lesson in geography, which is representation of geographical features. Before I begin this chapter, I would like you to quickly recall what we had learnt in classes 6 and 7 regarding globes, maps and their features. First of all, we learnt why we need maps. We need maps in order to pinpoint locations, in order to find directions. Thus, when we look at this word map, it's actually come from the Latin name mappa, which means parchment. And these earliest maps date back to more than 4,000 years ago, would be exactly around 2300 BC, where the first map was excavated in Iraq, and that was on a baked clay tablet. Time moved on, and then we found that man used skins of animals, parchment and later on paper in order to draw maps. Ptolemy was one of the first cartographers. And I also want to tell you that the science of mapping or the art of mapping is termed cartography. We have also learnt the differences between globes and maps. In class 6, we learnt about the important elements of a map, which were the key, the title, the scale, the direction and of course the grid. We learned about different kinds of maps. The ones which we are commonly knowing are about the maps in the atlas. These are the small scale maps. However, we do have large scale maps. You would have seen your teachers carrying those maps into the classroom. They are the ones which show the political features of a region or the physical features. Sometimes we do have thematic or distribution maps. Maps pertaining to the climate of a place, the population of a place, the rainfall or the natural vegetation. However, in this chapter what we are learning more about are large scale maps called topographical or survey maps. So let's look at this term topography. It comes from the Latin terms topos and graphene. Topos means place, graphene means to write or describe about. So split up into two terms, topos, place, graphene, to write or describe about. We know that topographical maps are going to depict natural and man-made features, of course with the help of colors and conventional symbols. So even a layman or a common man can find out or identify the features of topographical maps so long as he knows what are the colors used, what do they depict and which are the commonly accepted conventional symbols. Let's look at this term natural features of a map. These are the features that are found within nature without man's interference. It could be the mountains, the rivers, the plains, the plateaus, the valleys, naturally occurring rivers, naturally found tanks. Then we have the man-made features which are constructed by man in the form of huts, villages, settlements, temples and of course other civic amenities like the post and telegraph office, the police station. Then we also have man-made structures like the roads, railways, which are means of communication. Let's look at the 7 colors like we had the 7 colors of the rainbow, which was Vibgyor. However, here we have the 3 primary colors, and from the first 3 letters you will definitely know R stands for red, yellow for blue, Y for yellow and B for blue. And then we have the green, the white, the black and the brown. Let's look at these three classifications first. Red depicts settlements where man lives either isolated in a single hut or it could be even in villages. And when would man settle down? When he finds the yellow depiction, which is for agricultural lands. Fertile land available, along with the blue, the presence of water bodies. The green presence for the vegetation, which would help him in his living. However, white depicts barren or uncultivable land. The black depicts the boundaries, may it be district or national or state boundaries, and the brown depicts the natural features, especially in the forms of mountains, hills, any relief feature for that matter. Next we come to the topographical maps that were introduced by the Britishers in the year 1757. Major James Rennie was the first British general who cartographed or drew these topographical maps. Now we have map collection as a hobby. So we find that there is an American personality, David Ramsay, who has a collection of maps dating back way back to 1846. He has a map of Kolkata which depicts the features of Kolkata from 1846 to 1849. Next we go on to the remaining part of maps, which are the elements. So I've already told you about the colors. Now we go on to what else are the special features of maps, and these are in the form of the title of the map. So here in this case it's basically topographical maps. Otherwise we find maps labeled as India political, India physical, India climate or natural vegetation and so on. Next we have the scale of the map, and we will be learning more about them. We will actually be recalling them as to what we have learned in class 7. Next we have the lines that show the squares of the map. So here we find in a map that a latitude, the distance between two latitudes is 111 kilometer. Therefore, we do not have latitudes depicting topographical maps. So what happens is we have the cartographer drawing vertical lines which increase in value towards the east. These are termed as eastings. Remember, vertical lines drawn and increasing in value towards the east, these are the eastings. We also have horizontal lines increasing in value northwards, these are northings. Remember, eastings, value increase towards the east, northings, the value increases towards the north. When both of these in turn coordinate or crisscross, they form a grid which we call as a geographic grid. So I have eastings here with the values 8, 9, 10, 11. Northings with the values 31, 32, 33, 34. And what I find is when they crisscross, they form this grid, and then I can locate any value, any object, the location of that object with the help of these grids, with the help of these eastings and northings. And a little later on in the chapter, once we revise conventional symbols, we are going to use this grid in order to locate the 4-figure reference for that particular temple or the tank or the tree. Moving on, the second quality element that we learned are the scales of a map. Before we go on to recalling scales, I would just like to show you the maps, topographical maps. You have a book of topography wherein you have questions also. This is just a reference map where we find that we have grids, 10 grids running lengthwise and 10 the breadthwise, forming a rectangle. Here in this map what we find are basically the color yellow depicting agricultural land. Of course, we have white patches, which is the uncultivable land, a little green towards the northeast, which shows cultivable land, the forested region. And in there we have one of the dry streams running across from the north towards the southwest. We have another map with more of green in it, which will give you an idea of the natural vegetation of that region, where it could be in the form of dense mixed jungles, open mixed jungles, scrubs, or it could be just fairly mixed jungles. So here, when we find that there's more of greenery, it would be more of a hilly region. We will find brown lines in between these, which we term as contours. Before we go on to contours, let us learn a little more about the scales of a map. So in class 6 and 7, we have learnt about the scales of a map, and we learnt that, I'll just write it over here,